So we're going to talk a little bit about just how did we get into cards and kind of maybe what was the inspiration for Alpha Clash as a trading card game, and then just Rising Empire Studios as a whole. And how did we? If you don't know, Ridge and I are brothers, so a lot of these are shared memories. But how did some of this start? How did we really get into these things?
I mean, everything started with sports cards at a really young age. I mean, it would have been you first, and then I was just kind of there,
Yeah.
collecting.
Like a
And
lot of things, Ridge was just tagging along to whatever I
you had a Nintendo, then
wanted to
I'd
do.
play your Nintendo. You got a Super Nintendo, I'd play your
Yeah,
Super
as
Nintendo.
always, everything. That's big brother, little brother dynamic. But for us, it was sports cards. And one thing that was interesting for us as kids is that our uncle, Jason, had a sports card shop. And so all of our presents and all the things we got as like really young kids was sealed product, like from the 80s. And, whether it's baseball, basketball,
As
football,
we know,
whatever.
really valuable sports cards from the 80s and 90s for sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they call it junk wax or whatever now. It
Yeah,
wasn't all the most valuable stuff
but that's
probably
what
to this
started
day,
it.
but that's what started our passion just for the card hobby in general.
Hmm.
And it was all sports. We were big into cracking a set, and we'd get the sealed sets, which killed us as kids because we could never open it.
Yeah, we had to
We
save it.
had to save it, but we also had full binders where we'd, like everybody, keeping all their cards and keeping track of
Yeah, we had
everything. And
football, basketball, baseball, WCW.
yeah, one of the first memories I have of like really like my own card box and cracking it and whatever was 1994 WCW. It's like a purple box, maybe it had Sting on the front. I don't know, it's like
Yeah,
burnt in my brain.
was it like purple and yellow, like
Yeah,
yellow?
like neon kind of colors.
Yeah.
But um, our big thing we got into with was baseball of all things, which neither of us really follow baseball
No.
today. We follow football, MMA, wrestling, some other sports casually, but baseball was what we were big into it for cards as kids. And
Yeah.
who was your guy?
Ken Griffey Jr.
King Griffey Jr., right? I was Frank Thomas, the big hurt, and
Our dad was like
Cal Ripken
Sammy
and
Sosa.
Barry Bonds.
Oh, Barry Bonds. That's
Cal
right.
Ripken and Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
And so we really, like, as a family, collected those four people, and that was like what all of our. We went to the shows, the expos, the halls, and whatever. And I just have so many memories of us with our dad and parents and everybody just going to these shows and collecting them and whatever. And although that turned into trading card games and other things, I think just the chase of that and the memories and those things is really what,
That's what started it.
was the genesis of like we want to create that for other people. Like I have so many memories of those things, and you want people to experience that. And as far as trading card games, how did that really get
Well,
started?
I mean, it started with Pokemon first. I was in fourth grade, so late '90s, about that time, and at least by the time it got to Eagle Grove, Iowa, which is small town Iowa, I don't know how long it had been out,
It'd
but
probably been out for a couple years by the time
yeah.
we got it.
And then, but base set, and then what was really big in our small town was Japanese cards, because like I always wondered how are these even getting here, like genuinely. But just started collecting base set, and then I mean for me, I collected base set through Neo, all the
We
Neo
had a couple
sets.
cousins and friends and people in town, and everybody was kind of getting into it at that time,
Yep.
and it helped with the
No one knew
TV
how to
show.
play it.
I don't think anybody knows how to play it to this day.
Well, they got the app now.
Oh,
If you can
that
play,
helps.
that
I
helps.
still don't know how to play it.
Yeah, it's pretty
Really.
basic. But where we were from, I mean, no one knew how to play
Point
the
is,
game.
nobody knew how to play the
It
game.
was purely collectible.
Everybody had the cards,
Yeah.
so it was at that point just a trading card game. We were just trading it and collecting it, and famously, Ridge has a binder of like all of the most valuable and rare cards ever made, and nobody knows what happened to it. We still think our mom gave it away or sold it, or
Somewhat. Yeah. It's somewhere.
it's
Someone's got
somewhere. Someone's got it with just tens and tens of thousands of
it. Oh,
dollars
easily. Yeah.
of
Base set through Neo, full, just full
he's
sets.
totally forgotten about it too. It never comes
Yeah.
up.
I never bring that up.
Yeah, could have put his kid through college,
I
but
just keep looking around at garage sales looking for it. But
just try to find it. But Pokemon rolled into other games. And so I think a lot of that started. I was a sophomore in high school and I was in geometry class. And naturally, as you learn in geometry class, was trading card games. We were just playing cards. I don't know why. I don't know what we were doing, why we weren't doing schoolwork or homework or whatever, but my friends were playing Magic the Gathering. And a couple guys gave me some decks, and we just started playing and kind of turned from a classroom hobby into like a full blown thing. It
Yeah.
was it
Yeah.
was pretty full blown.
Yeah.
Ridge mentioned we were from Eagle Grove, Iowa. The nearest card shop for us was like an hour away
Yeah.
at Mayhem in Ames, Iowa.
Yeah.
And so we would often at that time, internet was a little different. We barely had cell phones and whatever. Like we were ordering from Card Shark,
Card Shark. I remember
Card
that.
Shark online to get some singles where we were always after like the most beat up, cheapest non-foil, like anything we can get because we had no money. And or driving an hour with a car full of people to Mayhem
To man. Yeah.
in Ames to go find the stuff we couldn't get online. And how did that evolve from classroom to kitchen table?
Yeah, that was quite the evolution because we then started playing as a group. There was what, six of us?
Probably,
It was about six of us
maybe,
that would play.
yeah, core group. There's some
Yeah, yeah, there were outliers, but I mean, we played anywhere from 2 to 6 nights a week, depending on the
for a
week, for
while.
a long. I mean,
We were involved in a lot of stuff,
for probably 4 years.
sports and hobbies and jobs and all kinds of stuff. And we
So
were,
outside, whatever whatever our free time was, we would play at night, or like right after school if there was nothing going on, we'd go and play. And it really evolved into us getting pretty serious about deck building, what we're going to play against our friends, and all that. And so we started around, I want to say like Odyssey.
yeah, late night. We had a lot of cards from the 90s, but
Yeah.
really it was in the early 2000s that we started playing the game.
Yeah.
And so
So somewhere around
seventh
Odyssey is when we
set
started.
and Odyssey and all that stuff around there
Yep.
was when we were kind of really getting into it, and it kind of ramped up for years later into Mirrodin and
Dark Steel,
Dark
Fifth
Steel,
Dawn.
Fifth Dawn. Those kind of
Yeah.
sets was maybe like peak of our
Of our when we played,
when we
when we were playing
played
a ton.
the most. And what we would do is on Saturday nights we would gather. That's what we would do, and
Yeah.
we were
Like, hey, you want to gather?
we want to gather, and we'd get the group together and play cards on Saturday. And I think for us it would be, I don't know, we might play for 8 hours on a Saturday night. And
Easily.
that it's just some of the best memories that I have
Hmm.
with some of our friends, and some of them are still in the community now. You see Brady and some people in the community that have helped us along the way with this company. And, we play with our cousins and Dan and Adam and all kinds of guys back then. And I just have these memories that like I really cherished like those times and whatever. And, you know, that's what we want to do with this game is I want people to have those same kind of feelings when they think about our game. And we would, play for hours and hours, and every Saturday at midnight we would stop playing.
Had to stop.
Had to stop at midnight,
We'd even leave the game just right where it
right
was.
where it was. And why do we do that?
We had to go on what was called a midnight run.
Midnight run, where we were not
We
running.
weren't running.
We were athletes, and we weren't running
We
at
weren't running.
midnight.
Yeah.
We were running to the gas station.
Yeah. So we'd all hop in a car, drive to the gas station on the edge of town. There was only two at the time,
Casey's and Come and Go.
Casey's and Come and Go. We'd go to Come and Go because it was a
Open
24.
later. Yeah.
I think it was 24 hour. But uh, then we would get our food.
Bomb.
Yeah, break
The
it down.
bomb burrito
The bomb
and
burrito.
whatever
If
else.
that
Like
still exists,
it probably still exists, and I would not want to eat one today.
yeah. Uh, but we would come back, we would eat, and then we would keep playing until I don't know 3 a.m.
I don't think our parents ever knew.
No, our parents didn't know
They
that
had
we
no
were.
idea what we were doing.
No,
I'm sure because we were just like up all through the night playing cards and just having a blast, like not out doing anything, getting in trouble. We were like sitting at a table playing Magic,
yeah,
which is great.
yeah.
But I just have so many, great memories, like I said, from that. And so, how do we go from there as the evolution of cards?
Yeah, that you kind of fast forward because once we were done with Magic, because we had sold a majority of our decks, we had gone off to college and kind of just separated as a group. Um, I think Dragon Ball Super, around the first/second set is when I had found out about it, and ironically, Efren, who's our chief artistic director,
Yeah.
chief of design. He came over to Vegas, and we were at my father-in-law's house, ironically, and he was just like, "Hey, did you see Dragon Ball has a card game?" I was like,
We love Dragon Ball.
"Yeah, we love Dragon Ball," and it was like, "Really?" And so I looked at it and looked at the rules. And I thought, I mean, it's similar to Magic-ish, and so I went to uh, a card store in Las Vegas where I was living at the time, and just bought some of the product that they had there. I looked up like where do I even find this? Did that. Some guys gave me bulk that were just playing, and I kind of just stood and I said, "Hey, can I watch you for a little bit? Because I'm curious how it plays." And at the time, Vegas had a healthy group of like 40 players that met between one or two stores like very regularly. So I kind of just hopped in, and my job at the time was a little wonky with my hours, so I couldn't go play locals regularly. I was still working when tournaments would start, and same with Saturdays. I worked Saturdays, so I would hop in from time to time like that. But I just got really into like buy the sets, I deck build, and then I maybe would play at locals or not,
Right.
and then the next set would come out, and I just buy and build, and I would sell and trade and do that. And
Every time we'd get together for that time, he would like teach me how to play. And
I did buy. Now that I think about it, remember when I bought Marvel Versus, and then I tried to sit us down, and I was like, "All right, I'm going to try to show you how to play this," and you were just not.
wasn't having it.
Yeah, you were like, "No, no, we're
So
not doing
Ridge
this."
got really into Dragon Ball,
Yeah,
and I was in Vegas, and I had never played it before.
I
And
forgot about this.
we're sitting at the table one night, and he's like, "I'm playing in a competitive tournament tomorrow, and you're gonna play." And I'm like, "Okay." And he gave me a cell chain
It
deck.
said you'll figure this out.
You'll figure it out. And by the time I was 0-3 in the tournament, I started figuring it out.
Yeah,
It took me like 4 rounds to like be competitive.
yeah,
And but that was a great experience
yeah. You
to
just got
show
thrown
up.
into the
And
fire.
the first couple people I played against, I'd like do something and they're like, "You can't do that." And they're like, "Take it back." And I'd do something else and they're like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "All right, take it back." I'm sure they were like super annoyed. I had literally never I played one
Yeah,
game.
I was like, "All right, let me show you the rules really quick. Do
Yeah.
this," and they're like, "Okay, it's time to go. We got to go
Yeah.
to the."
I had played one game before I played my first
Yeah.
tournament, and I'm sure the people I was playing against were like really into it and probably thought I
Oh,
was really bad at it. I had
after
to
every round, I'd come up and be like, "How you doing?"
Rich is like, "Oh, I'm 4-0. How you doing?" I'm like, "I did a damage that last game." And um, it's I had to lose like 3 or 4 until I got paired up with somebody else that didn't know what they were doing, to where I could
Exactly.
just be a better card player than that
Yeah.
person, even though
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing with my
You
cards.
got
But
either like one or two wins on that.
yeah, it was great. I don't think I won anything. I think Ridge won the tournament. Or
Yeah,
no, that
either
one. Did
either
you go?
one, that one, or I got like second or third. I can't remember
Yeah.
because I only went to like maybe four tournaments in
I
Vegas,
don't think they liked Ridge very Ridge shit like didn't come to locals and didn't play, and then he showed up
and I
and
would
won
just show up.
won a couple tournaments.
Yeah,
Um, which we thought was funny.
yeah, it was funny.
But just another collecting story. I played one tournament, barely played some kitchen table games, and within a year, I probably had the best.
You might have had one of the best raw collections for Dragon Ball at the time. This is early, so
Yeah.
grading wasn't big yet. It wasn't kind of mainstream because the game didn't hit its rhythm from the collecting side of things. But I had talked to Garrett into because at the time I was buying and selling, and basically I was making money so that I could invest into the next set, and I just kept this cycle
He
going.
would just send me a message like, "Hey, you want to buy a case?" And then he'd buy a case and then he'd flip it, and we'd make
Yeah,
some money. And we were just like
like, hey, I'll
buying
get
and
it for
selling
so.
cards and collecting and whatever. And then he hit me up about a opportunity, as you want to call it, as
How much
most
was it?
of
It was like 10 grand or something, like 5 to 10 grand,
it
something like
wasn't
that.
cheap, as most like adults with a job and like things. I was like,
I told him
"So-
this is
seems like a great investment."
yeah, I said this is hands down like you will like this is smart. You got to do it. I'll help you out. I'll take care of you. And so basically what we did is at the time we decided to parcel it out via TCG Player, which was still lucrative. So,
It was still lucrative.
but this was like,
The,
think
I
about
got
this,
paid like
10
a
full,
dollar per hour.
yeah, like $1 per hour. It was like 10 full binders of if you know Dragon Ball, it was like Awakened Power Goku. There was like 8 just raw mint perfect. Looking back, we would have like taken all the best cards, graded them, gotten like
Had
PSA
all
or
the
BGS
signature
9 or 10.
cards, all the whatever
And there was like 8 to 16 copies of every single.
card that had ever come out.
Yeah, and especially the expensive,
Yeah.
valuable cards. So what ended up happening is Garrett is using TCG Player,
I'm coming home from work exhausted, and I get home and check my email,
and you
and,
would have like 50 new sales.
and I'd have to sit there and put them into little
Yeah.
sleeves and put them in an envelope and seal the envelopes 50 times. And then
And
it'd be
he
like,
wasn't equipped for it either. Like I would be like, "Hey, send him the Amazon
I
links.
hadn't done
Hey,
this before.
you gotta just do that. Get your tape, get your bubble mailers, get your this, get your that." And basically, like, threw him out to the wolves in terms of like mass sales for
I was
TCG
working a
Player.
second full-time job for a while.
Oh,
I'd
easy.
come home from work and fulfill orders for hours and then go to bed and get up and go to work. And
And I would tell him, "See, I told you it was a good investment. You're moving these cards.
some were moving at a quarter a piece. It didn't
Some
it
were,
didn't feel like it. And others were hundreds of dollars
yeah,
and
right,
whatever at the time. But it's funny because I did it for months and
months."
months and I moved a lot of that product.
Well,
And
and then it got to the point where you were like, "Hey, I'm just gonna sell it."
yeah, I was
And
like, hey, I can't do this anymore. It's so much.
yeah,
I'm too busy. I just want to sell the rest of my collection. Help me sell it, whatever.
so I paused the inventory
He
on TCG
pauses
Player,
my
and
TCG player.
we'll come back to Ridge pausing it.
He pauses my TCG player inventory, and I go meet up with a guy in a sketchy Walmart parking lot, and he had to go inside. And here's how I
He
know that
flew.
I sold it too cheap. He flew in to meet me,
Yeah,
got an Uber from the airport, drove up there, went in Walmart, bought suitcases,
suitcases.
came out to load it to get in his Uber and go back to the airport.
Yeah,
So I know I sold it for way too cheap, but it's kind of a sketchy deal. All
still a
this
good
happened.
investment.
I still came out on the good end of it, and I sell off all the rest of this collection. I'm like, I just can't do
So
it anymore. It's
keep in
too
mind,
much.
he hasn't used TCG Player since. Yeah, I mean, this is
How many thousands of, I don't know how many thousands of, I had like 30 some thousand things on
oh yeah.
TCG player,
So what
whatever.
happened was I somehow at the time, a year later, and this is when Dragon Ball kind of started to take off a little bit, and there were like all the cards that he did
All the
have
cards I
were
sold went up
way,
like 30 times in value.
yeah. And I I think I was selling Dragon Ball on my TCG Player at the time, and I was somehow on his. And I was like, "Oh, that's weird," and I had unpaused the inventory, so
Which
I may
was
have done
awesome
that, and I mean, he got flooded with, I mean, tons of
because I had
sales.
$1,000 cards posted for $200. And
Yeah, right.
so instantly I'm at work and it's ding, 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 ding. And it's like, I'm selling hundreds of cards
And
while I'm
so
at
we
work.
had
And I'm
to,
like, what? I'm messaging him. I'm like, what happened? My TCG
I
player
mean,
is going
within,
nuts.
I mean, what, 5 or 10 minutes, it
Oh,
was like going crazy. So I had
going
to go. I
crazy.
was like, "Oh," and so I go in, pause it. I'm having to refund every single one. I'm taking care of it. I'm sorry, the inventory, whatever.
It was awesome.
It was chaotic, but kind of funny to look back on.
It was really funny.
Yeah,
Not that funny
yeah.
at the time.
So to tie in, how did we get to Alpha Clash from Dragon Ball? Yeah, I was at home for the pandemic for COVID, and was watching my son full time, and an idea just
Furloughed
kind
and
of,
furloughed hanging out like
yeah, furloughed
everybody.
and hanging out in Vegas because I mean, Vegas was very shut down. So one day I just had an idea, and because the Dragon Ball crowd died off, and I was just looking for something, I really just sat down and I started to build a game that sounded really fun to play alongside an IP that I had an idea for, and then I
And he
contacted
called
Al.
me and tell us about it. And I'm like, cool. Like that sounds really cool. That'll be fun to like play at home. Like it'll be fun to play at the kitchen table. And at the time, I had no vision for what was about to happen with the company.
I was dragging everyone. I was like, guys, you have to see the vision. Like I don't know how else I can tell you.
Right.
Like we're going to make a very good game and IP, and we've got these, big hopes and dreams and all this, and I need you to get on board because, Al, I need you to write the story because
Ridge and Al worked together in Las Vegas.
yeah, Al and I worked at Cirque du Soleil for many years, and so we had built that rapport, and I brought it to him and Efren and Garrett, and basically just got them to say, yes, I'm in.
Right. I mean, sure you can in other videos and just the game, you can feel Ridge's passion, everybody's passion for the project and whatever. It was very apparent at the time that like, you know, I think I probably reluctantly at first was like, "Oh, that's really neat. That's cool. Good job. Like you built a game." And then we sat down and we talked through it. And at the time, we just had paper cards that were like handwritten, whatever. And
Yeah.
we tried,
Not even the V1 test cards. It was
no, like
literally
before
just
that, pieces of
a
paper.
piece of paper that I just like uh used the
He was
paper
using the
cutter,
paper cutter
just
and cut
using
them
like
out.
compute sheets of computer paper, and just
Yeah, just
writing with a pen.
making cards and
Yeah.
telling me these ideas and telling me about the story. And it didn't make
No,
sense.
you had no
I
idea.
was like, "What Magnate, what is that?" Like just like going through because there's a rough, outline of characters and this whole story. And I was a little concerned for him at first because Ridge was a good student, but he wasn't a great student. And I was a little concerned when he came up with this entire world and this whole game. And I was like, "You doing okay? Like, what's going on over there?" I didn't know you had that in you. But he started giving us the game, and I'm like, "This is really good." Like it's, everybody thinks Sure Thing is the best, but I
Yeah.
was like, this is as good or better than anything I've ever
So I
seen or been on the
showed
market.
Garrett, and then I showed Brady, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm into this. And then it's okay. Now I show Alex, and then I show, and everyone was just saying yes, yeah, like really enjoying it. And then once we got it to the point for like testing cards, I went into Mayhem and I said, hey, would you guys be interested in helping me test out my new game? It's superhero themed, if you will. And Mayhem is a comic store, also collectibles and cards, but it's a comic store. And they said yes. And then next thing you know, we've got 10 people testing the game, and they're having a great time. And we did that for weeks. So I knew we were on the right track.
That's what you see now. Some of those V1 test cards that are
Yep.
coming out on those little sheets of cardboard that we had them printed on, and
Yep.
we're playing some of those and end up just developing the game at the kitchen table. And
Yeah.
the whole first set, like Ridge developed just like he actually developed more than the first set because there was like 100 cards that got cut
I had made the discarded,
before
and
set one.
yeah, before set one was one of the first things I made, and I was super excited to put it into the first set. But then after we had kind of the theme and everything, the discarded just did not fit, and so
It was too much.
that's why we had Morak and Ridlack only.
And the portal and just a lot of
A
ideas
lot of
that
ideas.
were in there, stuff you're still seeing come out for the first time in Equilibrium,
Yeah.
stuff you haven't seen come out yet in the next block were ideas that Ridge had before the first set and that we kind of fleshed out at the kitchen table. And, you know, there were a lot of people playtesting it. My like one real contribution to the first set was the Clash kit, and that was
Yep.
pretty much it. Like I play tested everything else, and then just built the Clash kit at the table.
I
Like
still have one.
goldfishing the game mostly against myself,
Yeah.
which
Right.
is funny. Just the way that the humble beginnings. Now we've got some devs and we've got a playtesting team and we take it places and whatever. But it really was like pieces of paper at a kitchen table to build a great game. And
I still like to play the set one starter decks. Moxie Magnate. It just takes me back to just the beginning,
yeah,
and I could sit and play just that deck because it's also autopilot. Like I know, and we made it from the ground up, and so that's a fun one. I could just sit.
yeah.
I could sit. We could play and talk just as we play it. Like that's just such fun.
Yeah. And anytime we go to conventions or people want to learn the game, I'm always nudging Ridge, like, use the new cards for the new artwork and the new mechanics. And Ridge is like, I love the set one Clash kit. And
Yep.
of all things, Ridge always plays with Moxie,
I love playing with Moxie. Set one Moxie Clash kit.
which I think it's funny at the time. And even in hindsight, everybody's like, Magnate's so much better. And you see those arguments like, if it's unbalanced, Magnate's better. But it's, I think Magnate's beginner friendly.
Magnate's very beginner friendly.
He's just straightforward,
Straightforward.
smack you in the mouth. He gets the bonus on his side,
Tougher
and
up front.
he's tougher up front. In Moxie, you got to play the long game. You got to let yourself get beat down a little bit,
Yeah.
and then she can swing in late and get you.
Yeah.
Which I think is always it's a great way to teach somebody how to play the game. We talk about it all the time and do
Yeah.
all these conventions and do all this stuff. They're like, you kind of let them beat you up, and they get feeling really good and feeling good, and they're kind of beating you down, and then you swing in and
Start
kind of
passing around the light power armor.
right,
Yeah. I haven't used it as much since it had been like Origins last year and even 2 years ago. Like,
right.
yeah, but you know, if you see me rocking Moxie, I mean, just know, like,
Hey, Ridge
I'm
did it
wearing
before J Crane,
that.
so
Yeah,
original Team Moxie over
yeah,
here.
exactly. I need to spruce it up a little bit. I need to suit up and do some
Yeah,
other fun.
maybe we'll do some gameplay videos. We've heard that a lot from you guys that you want to see more game content and more of mostly Ridge talking, but I'm here to maybe be some color commentary, bounce it off of him a
Right.
little bit, and show you guys more gameplay. Maybe we can spruce up some Clash kits. We should probably crack one of these. We can show you gameplay of the new Clash kit, all kinds of stuff coming up. But
Yeah, and so really, going back to the heart of it, how did we get into trading cards, and you know, how did we get to this exact moment? And we're just trying to help people have fun playing the game, build memories around it, playing at their kitchen table, playing at their game store, coming to events and really just having a good time in the community. Um, and then hopefully, be able to play this thing for years and years and enjoy an IP, that people would say, hey, I've been in it from the beginning and now we're on, year 10 or whatever,
right.
just with some of the fun, storytelling that we've got plans for.
Yeah. From Ken Griffey and Frank Thomas to Equilibrium, our our cards have changed quite a bit over the years, but it's been a great journey through cards and all the way up to building Alpha Clash at a kitchen table and kind of just pitching this whole world and universe. And I didn't even really get it at first, but he won me over and the rest of the team, and it's really taken on a life of its own. And it's cool to see it growing in other parts of the world and not just the U.S. and having people show up to our events and all those things that Ridge saw right away. These things happening, but for us to kind of see it grow from very pretty humble beginnings to where it is today. And obviously we've got a long ways to go, but appreciate you guys being all along for the ride, and we'll see you soon.